Yo guys, it's been a while since I've done a James Bond review. So today I'm back with On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Let's talk about it. Spoiler alert for this review and for the movie itself. But I will probably have some controversial opinions about this movie. But with that said, let's just start talking about the negatives. And unfortunately, I don't think that George Lazenby is that great as James Bond. I won't only say negative things about him, I will have something positive about him when we get to the positives. But for a large portion, I think he's very wooden in his line delivery. And it also doesn't help that he's dubbed for a quarter of the movie or something. And I don't think he can sell the one-liners all that well. And even when he's just walking, he just doesn't look as cool or suave as Sean Connery. Maybe that comparison is a bit unfair, but I think it would have really helped if Terence Young was also on the set of this movie to help George Lazenby become suave, like he helped Sean Connery help become suave. And even besides George Lazenby, there are some other problems I have with this movie. I really like the concept of the Angels of Death spreading a deadly virus. When we get to the climax, I don't get the sense that James Bond really stopped a disaster from happening. The Angels of Death had already sent out to the world with their deadly virus. And I don't get how just destroying the command center, how that would stop the entire disaster from happening. Because the Angels of Death had already been released. And I also think that when James Bond gets to Piz Gloria, the pacing drags a bit for me. To me, it gets always a bit jarring in its pacing when he gets to Piz Gloria. And I also think that the part where James Bond falls in love with Tracy was a bit too suddenly. Like in the one scene, Tracy and Bond don't seem to be that interested in each other. Then there's a scene where Tracy is crying and Bond is comforting her. And then we are in the middle of a romantic love montage. And I feel like there's a scene missing in between. There should be just this one key scene where James Bond truly falls in love with her. And I feel that's missing from the movie. But even besides these problems, I luckily have also a lot of praise for this movie, which we can now get to. And up until this point in the franchise, this is the most emotional Bond movie of them all. The Connery movies didn't have that much of an emotional weight. They had some scenes where it got a little bit emotional, but not to the extent of this movie. And I have to say that in the emotional moments, George Lazenby actually did a pretty good acting job. And two scenes in particular, one where Bond proposes to Tracy, I think George Lazenby was very good at that scene. As well as in the tragic ending where his wife gets killed. I think in that scene George Lazenby gave his best performance in the entire movie. And speaking of the tragic ending with Bond losing his wife, that ending was very powerful. You legitimately feel bad for Bond for losing his wife. Just as in this one brief moment, we see Bond fully happy, starting a life with a beautiful woman and a woman he loves, only to be taken away straight away by Blofeld and Irma Bond. I also think that George Lazenby was pretty good in the fighting scenes. He's definitely a lot better than Roger Moore was in most of his fighting scenes. And speaking of the fighting scenes and action scenes, this movie does have a couple of spectacular action scenes. In this movie we get introduced to the famous ski chase, and well, it's become a very iconic staple of the James Bond franchise, and for good reason. Well, he has done an amazing score for all of his movies, but the music playing while the ski chase plays out, it's absolutely amazing. As well as the song We Have All the Time in the World is also a fantastic song. And the villains in this movie, I feel, are very strong too. I think that Telly Savalas is probably my favorite Blofeld, other than the ones where you don't see his face. But I think he's more menacing than Donald Pleasence was. I feel that Telly Savalas is a more believable physical threat to Bond. And Irma Bond is just downright terrifying. And out of all the Bond movies of the 60s, Tracy is definitely the strongest out of all of them. She has emotional weight, she has a purpose in the story, and I genuinely buy that James Bond would genuinely fall for a woman like this. And Diana Rigg is just an excellent actress overall, and she was probably cast because George Lazenby has never acted before, so they must have thought, we need someone who is just an excellent actor or actress to make up for George Lazenby's lack of experience. So Diana Rigg did an amazing job, and Tracy is just a fantastic character. I also really love the wedding scene at the end of this movie, where we see all the MI6 stuff and Moneypenny gets emotional. So that's all fun and good. And I know that this is nowadays one of the most beloved James Bond movies ever. I see it ranked in the top 5 frequently. But unfortunately for me, it's not a top 10 worthy Bond movie. I do really like it. I don't dislike the movie at all. But there are just these couple problems that hold it back just a bit from becoming like the top tier Bond. But that said, I think this is a very good Bond movie, and I do think it's better than You Only Live Twice. So I'm gonna give this movie an 8 overall and an 8 on the entertainment scale. And this is a must watch for James Bond fans. Now comment down below what you thought about this movie, and what do you think of George Lazenby as James Bond. I'm very curious. Comment down below. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as always, I will return.